kind of oriented, it's a good place to find some good competition there. So it's really about trying to find our student athletes the best matchup for them, for the athletes that are ready for that competition, and that's where we go. Anything else? All right, go Panthers.
Thank you, Dave. Next up, UNI swimming and diving, and head coach Nick Lake and Panthers scored a dual victory over South Dakota State in Brookings on Friday. Panthers took down former head coach Doug Humphrey. Next up is UNI head swimming and diving coach Nick Lakin.
So we had a pretty good meet on Friday. The last couple meets we've been getting off to a little bit slower start, so we moved some people around and really talked about it and worked at getting off to a good start, and we did that. The medley relay with a win. Katie Taylor went in the 200 freestyle instead of a typical 100 backstroke and got the win. Madison Rinaldi then stepped up in the backstroke and got a win, and then we went 1-2 in the 50 freestyle. So going in, we thought we may be down as many as 15 points going into the first diving break, and we were up 20 instead. So Crystal Floorman had a great day. She had season bests in the 50 free and 100 fly, and was on 2 relays that won. And also our distance ladies had some really big steps up from where they'd been to this point, so that was great. Rachel Siebenaller, Jordan McCullough, and Kylie Engstrom had great days. So.
How do you feel about where this team is at with a couple weeks of training left before the conference championship?
Yeah, we saw a lot of people come around, and we got some good answers as far as, you know, that third or fourth person on all the relays. So we're feeling pretty good about that. And then unlike the dual format, we're going to have to kind of fill in some depth. So we have some work to do there, and so that's what we'll spend the next 3 weeks doing. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next up, UNI men's basketball and assistant coach Eric Crawford filling in for Coach Jake today. Coach Jake's doing some recruiting. Panthers split this past week, took care of Illinois State, and then lost on Sunday yesterday at Loyola. They'll be home, or actually at Evansville on Wednesday, and then home on Saturday against Indiana State. Next up, assistant coach Eric Crawford.
Thank you, guys. I'd like to open it up to any questions. Well, that's a good question. You know, I think what it's going to take for us is we got to get a little bit tougher. We got to execute a little bit better. You know, I thought the first half yesterday we came out, we played the way we wanted to play. You know, holding Loyola to 26 points in the first half I thought was good enough on the road. Unfortunately, I think we only had 19. So we have to figure out a way to score on the road. I think at home the last few games we've been able to score, you know, in the 70s and even into the 80s. But on the road, I feel like we've been held down into the 50s or even below at times. And, you know, some of that comes with experience of playing on the road. Some of it comes with execution. So we're going to have to figure that out. But I think, it starts with bringing some energy and bringing some toughness. Will be the easiest ways to get started winning on the road.
Is there anything else, when you look at how this team has struggled to score 47 points the other day, 19 and a half, anything else about the struggles offensively on the road? Because at home, the team seems to be pretty good at that.
Yeah, you know, some of it just comes with experience and playing. You know, we still do have a pretty young core, especially in the backcourt, with a lot of freshmen and sophomores playing. So some of it comes with experience. You know, other than that, I think, you know, the good thing is that we're still getting shots that we want to get. It's not like we're struggling to find the looks we're looking for. We just haven't been able to convert some of those shots. You know, also playing on the road, you know, getting to the free throw line would help, a way to get some easier baskets, and then still trying to establish the post on the road. Is, you know, some teams have tried to double us on the road, and we're gonna have to try to figure out how to make that work against them. But you know, trying to find ways to get easy baskets to open up some of those three-point shots, I think is a way for us to turn our offense around on the road.
Loyola, obviously, first place. Now you've played them at their place. How far is the separation between them and everybody else, or is this valley just still wide open here?
You know, I think it's still wide open. You know, I think the separation is maybe 2 games right now. And I think 2 games in the Valley is it's not as much as people would think. It's it's a lot different than maybe 5 or 6 games like it's been in the past couple of years. But I think with still a lot of games to play, Loyola still got to go on the road to some of the teams that are right there behind them. I think they're a great team, but I still think that the separation isn't enough to where it's not going to be a close race down the stretch. The Aces, they're a tough team to play. We haven't faced a team quite like them all year, and I think that's what makes them unique is they run a man-to-man pressure defense, kind of similar to Loyola. So we'll have to figure out how to navigate that offensively. But then, for our defense, guarding their screening actions, I think is going to be difficult. We see a lot of ball screens right now and spend a lot of time practicing ball screen defense, but Evansville runs more kind of blocker mover screening motion, and some of our younger guys haven't seen that yet. Like Austin Fife hasn't had to defend it, Taiwan Pickford hasn't had to play against it, so I think it'll be a challenge to get them ready for how much those guys move, and that then also slowing down. Ryan Taylor's averaging 20 a game, and Drew Smith's right there at 14 a game, so slowing those guys down. And then keeping them from getting easy baskets. They do as good a job of anyone in the league at getting layups out of their motion. So trying to eliminate some of that and keeping them off the free throw line is probably the biggest adjustments that we're going to have to make.
Is there any discussion about maybe changing the starting lineup, going back with Bennett Cook after these last 5 games, putting Austin Fife in there?
I don't think so yet at this point. We haven't, as a staff, we have not talked about it. It hasn't really been getting off to good starts hasn't been our issue. A lot of our issues have been just putting the ball in the basket. And, obviously Bennett can definitely help you in some ways there. But, yeah, now as far as talking about adjusting the starting lineup, we have not discussed that at this point.
As far as the rotation is concerned, kind of beyond the starting lineup, it seems like since Austin's come in, it starts a bit better. That was what Coach was looking for. Is it maybe fair to say that with the rest of the rotation throughout the rest of the game, that's still something you guys are continue to evaluate and maybe make adjustments?
Yeah, absolutely. We're, every game seems like it's a little bit different, and somewhat we're relying on kind of as the game's going, seeing who's playing well offensively for us. We feel defensively any of the guys that we put in off the bench are going to compete at the same level as some of our starters will defensively. Some of it just comes down to who's making shots. Wyatt Lowhouse has had some games where he's really gotten going for us. Spencer Haldeman's had some games. So we're kind of trying to find the right units out there that play well together. We've been playing a lot more people in the first half of games, kind of getting guys in there, trying to keep our guys rested a little bit, and I think at times it's been really good for us. So I think that'll be something that we're currently going to continue experimenting with and trying to continue to build in the depth of our bench.
Is it fair to say that maybe some of those rotation decisions throughout the game over the past month or so have been more offensive driven than defensive driven?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's not a secret that there have been games where we have struggled shooting the ball and scoring. So I think we're trying to find the right lineups. Sometimes that's playing small with Clint at the 5 and Isaiah Brown at the 4, and other times it's playing 2 bigs in there together. But yeah, trying to find something that where our guys out there that it clicks, and as you see with Coach Jake in the past, if we find a unit that's rolling, he's going to stay with them. So we'll experiment a lot with different lineups, trying to find the right ones that work for us.
We saw a stat on Twitter that outside of Loyola, every other team in the Valley is 10 to 35 away from their home floor. What do you attribute that to? Does that surprise you?
Not really. I think winning on the road in college basketball is hard for any team. Obviously, most of the teams that end up at the top of the conferences are ones that are able to go out and win on the road. And I think if you look at the Valley, I mean, that's kind of what it shows you is they're, I think they only have 2 losses, and they're able to go out and get road wins. And most teams in our league haven't. I mean, not much different than what we've talked about today. I mean, we play extremely well at home, and we've protected our home floor the last few times we've been out there, and a lot of teams in the league do that. I don't know, I can't tell you honestly what makes that a difference or not, if it's just a comfortability or experience thing, but I think, looking across most leagues, a lot of the teams in the middle of the pack are the ones that struggle to win on the road, and the teams at the top are ones that can go on the road and win.
What's the vibe in the locker room in practice? There's been some highs, but maybe it looks like you're turning the corner and things will start to click a little bit more consistently, and then you have a game like yesterday.
Yeah, The vibe is, our locker room's fine. Like we have, our guys are extremely fun to be around. They don't take the highs and lows, too drastically. We, they're always pretty enjoyable, smiling. Guys are looking to continue to get better and improve. And I think over the, if you look at last year or the year prior, we were in situations where we were 2-6 or something like that. And when, I think a lot of the ways we do end up rebounding is because of the way our guys approach every day. It's, they're not going to hang their heads because we lost a road game yesterday to the top team in the league. We're going to come back and try to figure out what we need to do to win against Evansville, and they're going to go out on the floor and have a great practice. So, the locker room side of it is one thing we don't worry about, fortunately, and we're pretty lucky to have the group of guys we have.
With having the scout on Evansville, what would be your biggest concern, mainly because you've got a couple of true freshmen, some young guys playing against what Marty likes to do, both offensively and defensively. What are those main concerns?
The main concerns is getting our guys to defend their screening actions. And doing it without fouling. I think they shoot around 20 to 22 free throws a game. I think that's a big part of their offense. They shoot, I think they're dead last in the Valley at 3-point attempts per game. And that's by design. They want to get into the paint where they can get contact, where they can get easy shots. And I think the biggest part of our scout against them, and it's always been like this in years past, is defending their motion and keeping them out of the paint. And then closing out to their 3-point shooters. Sometimes it's late, but getting there because that they don't really want to spend the whole game firing up threes like a lot of teams nowadays do. So that's a concern. Another concern, as like I mentioned, with Austin Fife and with Ty, is just the physicality. They play as physical basketball as anybody in the league. They're going to get hit with a lot of screens, and I think what happens against a team like Evansville is if you continue to get hit with screens, you can either complain about them or you can try to get through them. And that's kind of going to be our message going into this game, is that we have to match their physicalness and their toughness. And if we can do that, I think that'll give us a good chance to get a road win. Good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Eric. Next up, UNI women's tennis. Head coach Chris Sager's Panthers picked up their first dual win of the season over South Dakota State. Next up, head coach Chris Sagers.
Yeah, up in Minneapolis, started out with Minnesota on Friday. We knew that was going to be, just a huge, tough task, much like Iowa the previous week. But going into it, starting out with doubles, I thought we played excellent doubles. All three teams, I know some of the scores at the 2 and 3 didn't kind of look close, but I thought they played better, much better than the week before. And then especially on number one doubles, we actually had a match point on that number one spot. We play no ad scoring, so game score gets deduced. It's whoever wins that point wins the game, and so it was match point for us, but then also break point for them. And unfortunately, they got the point, and then got the rest of the games to close out the set. But no, very happy with doubles, and then going into singles, Minnesota just proved their strength and experience, and they just kind of beat up on us a little bit. We were a little worried. They have a much slower surface than our courts at home, and I don't know if that got into our head or just kind of anxious to, play a solid team. But we were just kind of all over the place, and their consistency just kind of overwhelmed us. But then going into Sunday against South Dakota State, again, just starting out in doubles real well. Number one, Gisela Kemper and Regan Lynch just rolled. That was awesome to see. Our three struggled, but kind of only second time playing together. So just kind of learning, how they can play together. But came down to two doubles, very exciting. They were up in the doubles, and then all of a sudden we're tied, and all of a sudden we're down match points. And honestly, I don't know how we got through it. They came through with a win, so credit them. Two freshmen playing together at two dubs got the win, which was that important doubles point, which is always crucial going into singles. And then going into singles, kind of a roller coaster. I'm looking at the score. We're up big in 4 of the 6 singles, thinking we're in good shape. Kind of working with our 4 and 6 girls, struggling a little bit, and then all of a sudden our 3-girl and our 5-girl are kind of struggling closing out the set, and so kind of a roller coaster. But credit them; they both got huge wins to clinch the meet. Valcaro at 5, winning 5 and 5, but it was tough, frustrating match for her. And then Harry Proudfoot at 3, dropping the second set, and then pretty much down the whole third set, but to battle back and win in the tiebreaker. Very proud of both those freshmen for getting crucial wins in doubles and then also in singles. And then Regan at 2 and Gisela at 1 just rolled in their singles. So very proud of them. Happy that I could have them go out there and not really needing me on the court. I can trust them, and they steamrolled in singles much like they did doubles. So very proud with the win. It's always fun to get that win, get that first win, and got the weekend off. And 10th of February, we got UW Milwaukee at home, so we'll prepare for them.
Is there anything you're looking at kind of working on before Milwaukee comes to town?
Just we had a player hurt this weekend, so we got to evaluate her, see where she was. She wasn't able to travel. Kind of liking our number 1 and number 2 doubles teams. It's just figuring out where we're going to put at 3 doubles, and then we got a player that came in this January on a transfer, kind of seeing where she's going to fit in the lineup. So those type of things. So yeah. Anything else for Tess? Claudia Toledo. She transferred in from Iowa State. Had to sit out a year, so she's been out of competition and practice basically a year, and sitting out a year in any sport, it takes a while. It just doesn't come back right away. So we're working on her and trying to get her back into match and playing experience. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, head coach Doug Schwab, Panther Wrestling. UNI will head to Stillwater, Oklahoma on Saturday and take on the Cowboys at 3 p.m. on ESPN-U. Next up, head coach Doug Schwab.
Let's see. First things first, talk about my haircut. Did a pretty good job. Yeah. That look good? Ryan, what do you think? Yeah, that's a good thing. A little bit, as the season goes, sometimes that happens, yep. Let's see, don't have a whole lot to talk about. We had one guy compete this weekend, Jay Shipper, went over to tournament. The thing that I really like about that is he went on his own. Been real easy for him to not go, but he wants to go get some more matches and more experience, and went 2-2 in that tournament, so good for him. Let's see. I don't really have a whole lot. I mean, we got some good training in this week. We go to Oklahoma State on Saturday. Obviously, they have a very good team. Got a great tradition. And one thing I can tell you, when we talked about going to the Big 12, that was one thing kind of guys talked about. Do we get to wrestle Oklahoma State? Do we get to go down there? So we get that opportunity this week. So obviously looking forward to that. Next week we to come back home. One thing I want to talk about is pretty cool thing this summer. Bill Smith's our only Olympic gold medalist ever in the history of UNI, and he gave his gold medal back to us, to the wrestling program, to be displayed in the West Gym, which is a pretty incredible thing, and we're going to get to do that for the Iowa State meet. So anybody that's not there, that can't get there or didn't plan on being there, you should plan on being there. I know that some of his family's going to be there. Bill's health isn't great, but man, he still is sharp. He loves wrestling. He pays attention to what's going on with us in wrestling world. But to me, it's pretty incredible that there's one Olympic gold medal in our history, and we're going to have it in the West Gym, where he wanted it. And we've put a display together. It's actually been quite a labor of love on my part, but we wanted to make sure that we did it right. And the family is excited about what it looks like. I'm not sure if I should have said that or not, Michelle, but I said it, so we got it out there. Because it's next week, so it's good for people to know. But we're going to do something, like I said, to honor him and his family, and it'll be done well. It'll be in the hallway of the Hall of Champions, and that's where it should be. So if you got any questions about that, we certainly can talk about them. But just wanted to put that out there because not a whole lot to talk about this week. So thought I'd talk about that.
Oklahoma State
Yep.
in comparison to previous years. Do they seem more vulnerable this year, or have they progressed throughout the season?
One thing Oklahoma State's done, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, they've had really good national tournaments. If you've watched them, I think their guys have probably peaked at that time. They sometimes maybe build into shape a little bit more. You see some teams that are, I think that you don't see that happen throughout the year. Guys are they come in November and they're in tip-top shape, and sometimes their team works into it a little bit. I don't know about vulnerable. I watched the Missouri meet, and it was a pretty exciting meet. I mean, a lot of things happened throughout that meet. I think that they have a lot of good wrestlers, obviously. I think that, you get a guy that's a 2-time national champion, and it can happen to anybody. I mean, he's lost some matches, and I think he won like 65 straight, and then he's lost maybe 4 out of 7. It just shows you that it can happen to anybody. And confidence isn't a constant thing. I don't care even if you are a 2-time national champion. And it can go like this throughout a season. The season's tough. I mean, it's a long, grinding season. So I know John Smith will have his team ready. I can tell you that. They always are. Vulnerable, I don't know. I mean, I think that's our job to make them vulnerable, right? Go out and score points and attack positions and be ready to wrestle for 7 minutes. I think you can make them that, but as far as them being that way, I don't know. That's a good question. Every team's beatable. I mean, I'll never think different. I mean, the thing that's goofy, maybe in a good way about me is, I mean, I go through things in my head, and I always see us coming up on the winning end. It doesn't matter, I mean, who you start to match up with. I'm like, man, we'll find a way. We'll find a way to get it done. Maybe they're favored here. We'll find a way. And that's how I think, and I believe that, and I think our guys are believing that too. So that's probably the most important thing. I know it's tough to win down in Gallagher-Iba. It's not an easy place to compete, but it's fun. I mean, who doesn't want to go compete in a hostile territory in one of a lot of history in that gym, So I don't know. I think our guys, like I told you, when we talked about going to the Big 12, they talked about Oklahoma State and the opportunity to compete with a team like that year in, year out. And, we get to go down there. So it's our job on Saturday to make them look that way, It's a good question. I like it, but I'm not going to tell you that they're vulnerable or beatable. I mean, I think it's our job to go score points.
Of the 10 weight classes, there's a ranked guy in every weight class, and 6 of the matchups have been rated guys against each other. Just outside of going there and trying to win the duel, what else is important about some of the things that can happen for your guys in this duel?
Well, I think we're gonna see them at the Big 12. So seeding for the Big 12, but seeding nationally too. It's a big deal. Anytime that you can win matches, you can beat a ranked guy. You can make yourself. I guess you can shrink your number a little bit from a seeding purposes. It's a big deal. But hey, we're going to see these guys again in a couple weeks of the Big 12, and I think there's a way that you want to compete. You want to send a message as far as, hey, when you wrestle, you're going to have to figure out a way to beat us, or maybe snuff hope out of them too. I mean, that's even better. Just don't even give them don't give them a sniff in anything. I mean, that's because they're a smart team and they'll make adjustments. But man, we have an opportunity to build some momentum for us too, and just kind of send a message. I think our team needs to get used to winning in Oklahoma. I mean, the Big 12 tournament's down there, so you might as well get used to that type of atmosphere, seeing a lot of orange in the stands, and getting used to being able to compete and win in that type of environment. So, I mean, you can kind of look at matchup to matchup. I think, there is a lot of ranked guys. A guy like Albert obviously gets a chance to maybe bump up his ranking, his number, even though I know that guy, he's struggling, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. Nobody feels sorry for a guy when they're struggling. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the sport. It doesn't matter if the guy's hurt and injured, or he's, his girlfriend just broke up with him, or whatever happened. They don't care, and we don't care either. So, I look at that. I look at a lot of opportunities just for guys to be able to shrink their number a little bit. But I don't know. I kind of like weeks off, but I don't like weeks off because I get a little bit stir crazy. I watched a lot of wrestling this weekend. Got to go watch some future Panthers compete. And you kind of get to this time of year, and sometimes we build it up a little too much. That's kind of what we talked about our team yesterday. Like date on the calendar, and then we're like, I kind of talked about it last week. Things tighten up a little bit, and man, we need to stay loose and enjoy the opportunity. And the teams that do that, I think, end up being the best. And I mean, we don't have to tell anybody. We don't have to tell a single guy. There's no snow out there anyway, so we know it's getting closer to March anyway. But just being able to stay steady and continue to keep our emotions in check and not build things up too much, and really not tighten up in these big situations. And this is a great opportunity this weekend to show that, hey, we're not going to do that. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place as usual, giving a lot of coach speak. I'm trying to get better at that, but actually, maybe I'm getting real good at it.
For those who don't, Bill Smith wrestled a long
Yep.
time ago.
Yep.
For those that don't know the Bill Smith
Yep.
history or story, can you share that with us?
And actually, in the display, we'll be able to put a little bit out there, kind of where he came from and what he did, and in being a multi-time national champion from here, being from Iowa, and kind of his story a little bit. And Mike Chapman, I don't know if anybody knows him, but wrestling historian. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that knows more about the history of wrestling. He actually put a DVD together about Bill, and incredible. I mean, the history that he goes into and how much you learn about him, and I'm not doing a very good job of giving you his history. I tell you what, he's sharp, man. He's still fun to talk with. Like I said, he loves wrestling, man, and knows what's going on. But a small-town Iowa boy that won a couple national titles here. He was Iowa State Teachers College, 52, and went to the Olympics in Helsinki, and won a national title. And it's funny, he was talking about being on a boat and how long they were on a boat. And then I think about when I went to the Olympics, and you're flying a direct flight straight over to Beijing, and how things were a little bit tougher back then. But they didn't think about it any different, though. They were getting ready to compete, and they thought about it the same. But pretty cool to hold a gold medal in your hand, though, and think about where it's been and really what it means, and how many guys have dreamed about doing that, and he was one of them to do it. So I don't know how. Mike Chapman would be the guy to talk to, though. You want to go through history, or go or just get the DVD on him, because I tell you what, it's pretty incredible the in-depth that he is in Bill Smith and his family and his life. So I'm sure you can find it online somewhere. I'm sure Mike appreciates me giving him a plug. Yep. I think win-loss, I think if you enjoy to compete, you enjoy the opportunity, I think they probably handle it better than us. It was actually really good, though, to get some training in, though. We were able to kind of put a couple really hard days together, because it's hard. It's hard when you go on a Sunday and then you go on maybe a Friday again, to really put a couple really, really tough days together. So it was actually good for us, kind of where we're at in our training and how we're getting towards the end of the season. It was actually probably set up really well. We'll see how we compete with it. But some of the things that you do maybe aren't necessarily for just the week in front of you. They're for farther down the line. But I know our guys would probably rather be out there than watching. But that's not the. You got me. You got good questions, and then you get me thinking. Then I start talking, and then I get all over the place. And then I probably get more stir crazy than they do, though, just so you know. But also, then I'm trying to find that right balance in not doing that, So as a coach, like you get towards the end of the season, you're talking about, look, I lost some weight. I mean, you kind of get towards the end of the year and you start to ramp up a little bit when really you need to be able to stay real steady. So I'm trying to work to do that as a coach, and really stay just steady, man. That keep those seas real calm. But I know guys are ready to compete. I mean, they're excited. They were watching everyone else compete. I mean, it was a big weekend. And a lot of wrestling going on. But guys look forward to go down to Gallagher Iba, I can tell you that. I know I do too. It's never been very friendly to me when I've been down there different times, so I don't expect it to be any different. So I like that, though, a lot.
There's a handful of great atmospheres in college wrestling. What is it like at Oklahoma State? Are they one of the top atmospheres for a league?
That I've been to, no, not bad. Oklahoma fans probably won't appreciate that a whole lot, but I'm biased to Iowa. I mean, I've been in some incredible environments that are really hard to beat, So I'm a little biased on that. Even being up in Minnesota a few times, have been some incredible, absolutely incredible, just in where they're just on top of you. Even when I was at Iowa a few times at Oklahoma State, it wasn't packed though. It was good, but it wasn't like just everything on top of you. And I don't know if this crowd will be like that. I saw the crowds with Missouri and Iowa State, and they were good crowds, but they weren't packed to the gills. So I don't know. I have to really think. I'll think about it next week, and I'll give you a ranking. West Gym's number 1 though, just so you know. Anything else? What Saturday, 3:00, right? ESPN, ESPNU. So get an opportunity to watch the Panthers. And anybody can get down there. We could certainly use a little purple in the stands. So go Panthers.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Have a great week. Go Panthers.